If you've been watching this channel for a while, you may have heard me mention that Latin America has some of the most interesting, unique and colourful stadiums in the world. And Mexico is certainly no exception. The Liga MX is Mexican football's top flight, and it's certainly got some extraordinary stadiums. With that being said, let's get straight into it. Estadio Victoria. It's not named after Queen Victoria like a million other things are, but it's a brand of beer, and Victoria just means victory in Spanish. The stadium has a very unique feature behind the southern stands, and that is a water fountain. Not the ones you drink out of, but the ones that spray upwards into the air. Well, I guess drinking fountains can do that as well. It's not quite Victoria Falls, but it's still a spectacular sight. And it's the icing on the cake for what is a great little stadium. Estadio Olympico Benito Juarez. The dreaded running track. But it seems like an okay stadium otherwise. Maybe a bit more shaded seating would be ideal in this hot climate. But that might block the view of the mountains and the city over there, which is actually El Paso, Texas. It's separated by only Rio Grande, father of Ariana Grande, who works on the border, but also that river. Stadiums don't get much closer to an international border, except for that one in England that stretches over to Wales. But that's not really a proper border. Estadio Jalisco. For the longest time it was the stadium in Guadalajara, having hosted all of the city's major clubs. But as you'll see later on, a newer stadium has surpassed it. Like a lot of stadiums built around this time, the exterior is bare concrete. It's not the prettiest, but it's not ugly. The interior is made up of two tiers of what is now red and grey seating, to match the Atlas kit. It looks pretty good, but it does show its age. Estadio BBVA. At around $200 million in 2015, it's the most expensive stadium ever built in Mexico. That's a lot of money, but it's still an absolute bargain for a stadium like this. It's famous for its roof, both the shiny metallic nature of it and the way it swoops down to offer some spectators a view of the nearby mountain, which is an absolutely stunning view. The interior of the stadium itself is also quite stunning. This might be my favorite in Mexico. Estadio DiMazatlan, or El Kraken as it's also known. From the most expensive stadium we head to the newest stadium, having opened just last year. The team that plays here are also brand new. Well, they were a pre-existing team, CA Morelia, who controversially moved here and rebranded. Just like the last one, it has a swooping roof canopy, but there are no sizable mountains over there. It is a great little stadium, but something that's a little peculiar is that the seats don't match the team's kit. And that's because the team hadn't even been confirmed yet until late in the stadium's construction. Estadio Azteca, the most iconic football stadium in North America, having hosted 2 World Cup finals among other things. Just like Jalisco, it has a bare concrete exterior. The interior is anything but bare. It seems strange that such a sacred stadium, that's a tongue twister, is plastered with the branding of a couple of well-known beverage manufacturers. But having said that, it doesn't look bad in my view. It's just whether or not it cheapens the stadium as a whole. But even if it does, it's still a fantastic theatre of football. Estadio Olympico Universitario. It hosted the 1968 Olympics, but it wasn't especially built for the games. It actually started out hosting mainly American football 16 years before the Olympics. The design is quite interesting. It does sort of mix American football and European football stadium styles. It's an asymmetrical, multi-tiered bowl. There's also a rather nice mural on the eastern side, as well as an Olympic cauldron. I kinda like this one, despite the running track. Estadio Hidalgo. It's a fairly typical European style stadium, but due to the colours that have been used, it does stand out, and it distinguishes itself from the numerous other stadiums that have a similar structural design. I don't know if those support beams on the roof are red, brown or copper, but they look great with all the hits of blue throughout the rest of the stadium. That's something that Mexico definitely doesn't shy away from, vibrant colors. Estadio Quatermoc. The design of this stadium is quite clever because that plastic blue and white wall that wraps around the stadium makes all the difference, and it probably didn't cost too much. Not only does it keep some wind and rain out, but it also keeps the sound in. And it also takes the stadium's appearance to the next level, because this is what it looked like beforehand. Not bad, just nowhere near as good. This is the best kind of plastic surgery. But what about breast implants? Shut up. Estadio Corrigadora. It was built just in time for the 1986 World Cup, where it hosted 4 matches, and it has served as the home ground for 5 different clubs. Querétaro have been the only long-term tenants though, having played here since it was built. The design is basically like a miniature version of Estadio Jalisco. Not bad at all. When I say miniature, I don't mean pocket-sized, it's still a stadium and it's still quite sizable. Estadio Alfonso Lastras. The club and the stadium are actually part owned by Atletico Madrid, but the design is nothing like the Wanda Metropolitano. It's a nice and simple split-level bowl stadium with luxury suites and press boxes on one side. A fairly typical design in Mexico. I quite like the wavy pattern on the exterior that's carried over into the interior. But the seats have since been changed to all red after a little renovation, but that looks good as well. Estadio Universitario. At first glance you might think there are 4 tiers of seating, but it's just that the lower seating bowl is split into 3 sections. They've wisely kept this stadium without any roof canopies. Not only is the weather presumably quite good, but there are some stunningly beautiful mountains in the area that those sitting in the upper deck have a great view of. The stadium itself looks alright as well. Estadio Caliente. This stadium is hot. Just like one of the earlier stadiums, it's very close to the US border. Tijuana famously being just across from San Diego, but it's not quite as close. There is actually a bullfighting abattoir arena in Tijuana that's even closer. Most of the stadium's capacity comes from the sunken seating bowl, but as you can see it has been extended. There is also a rather impressive array of luxury suites and whatnot. I really like this one. It looks like Estadio Alfonso Lastras, but muy caliente. Estadionamasio Diaz. Just like Estadio Quatermoc, it underwent major renovations just a few years ago that dramatically changed the appearance of the stadium, for the better. The difference between old and new with this one is a little more dramatic, as you can see. It looks fantastic now. It's the highest stadium in the league at a whopping 2,670 meters or 8,750 feet above sea level, which is not a big deal in Mexico when the capital city is just a few hundred meters less than that. Estadio Corona. It's somewhat similar to a few that we've seen in this league, with a few differences. Firstly, the addition of that huge wall that wraps its way around the open sections of the stadium, which looks fantastic and makes the stadium just that little bit more cozy. I love the intentional rusty look that it has. Also, the facade of the main stand is quite flashy, and there's no mistaking the sponsor of the stadium. I don't know if you remember this, but the word Corona was mostly associated with beer before 2020, and it is of course a Mexican company. This one's pretty cool, crisp and refreshing. Estadio Leon. This stadium has quite a storied history, having hosted matches at the '68 Olympics and 2 World Cups. But its heyday is well and truly over, and as you can probably tell, it's well past its best. So Leon will be building a brand new stadium on a different site in the same city, which looks like it'll be one of Mexico's best. But for now, this one's not too bad. At least there are a couple of roof canopies, one on each side. The same can't quite be said for a lot of stadiums from this era. Estadio Akron. We end with a bang. This spectacular stadium was designed to resemble a volcano, with a cloud above it. Which it does. Except instead of lava and ash, it erupts with sound, which is much less deadly and better for the environment. It's certainly a one-of-a-kind stadium. Something that's a bit perplexing about it is, when it initially opened, there was real grass on the exterior, but fake turf where it really matters, on the pitch. They came to their senses shortly after though, and it now has a natural grass field. It's a fantastic stadium to end with. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, have a good one.